Okay.
Okay, so what we're doing now is I have to make some really small boxed pillows, and this is the perimeter of our pillow. It's 18 by 9 finished. And this is the rope cord that I have to apply. And I'm going to show you guys some tricks for how I apply rope cord. I've notched the middle because I like to put my rope, the beginning and ending of my rope cord in the middle on the bottom of most of my pillows. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little bit of overlap past my middle, and I'm going to measure my seam allowance. And for most home decor projects, I use a 1-inch seam allowance. And that's mostly because, especially on this type of pillow, I'm going to be hand closing it, so it's not going to have any raw edges exposed to get worn down or anything like that. So what I'm doing here is, rather than pin this down, I put the tip of my seam gauge right in the area where my needle's going to go, and then I maneuver the rope cord until it's 1 inch away from the cut edge of my pillow. So I'm going to go down just a little bit further.
Alright, let's get a shot on this side of you here.
So when I'm about 2 inches away from the cut edge of my fabric that's closest to me, I'm going to start notching my tape. And this is so that it can turn your corner. Now, I never, ever, ever try to do a perfect 90-degree turn whenever I'm applying rope cord on something. So that's my first cut right here. So I'm going to sew to my first cut, and then I'm going to stop. And now I'm going to maneuver my rope cord so that it turns my corner, and you can see that there's a really soft radius on there. So now I'm going to measure my 2 inches again, going this direction, and at that point I'm going to make sure that my rope cord is back at my 1-inch seam allowance, which it is. So you can see this radius. Now I'm going to hold all these little things in place and turn my corner. And I am using a piping foot. You can do this with a zipper foot, although a piping foot is much easier. So thankfully this is a really small pillow. Also, you can do this if you made your piping yourself using continuous bias, and then you just inserted some type of rope cord. This is just a braid that the owner of this pillow wanted to use to kind of pull their design together. So I'm going to turn my next corner, and I do the same thing over and over again. So I usually use a 1-inch seam allowance, like I said, on almost all of my home decor projects, because then you don't have to think about it too much either. It's a lot easier to add 1 inch and 1 inch than it is to add 5/8 and 5/8 a lot. And I'm sewing on a Bernina, which is a really good sewing machine, especially because it has a lot of different presser foot attachments that do different jobs. Like I said, this is a piping foot, and they have a couple of different sizes of piping feet. And I don't usually use a very tight stitch on this. I'd use almost a basting stitch while doing this, simply because it's going to get sewn around again when you put the other side on it. And at that time you can use a smaller stitch. Alright, 2 more corners to go. I'm almost done. And your cuts don't have to be pretty because, like I said, I'm closing this pillow up by hand, and nobody's ever, ever, ever going to see the inside of it. But you could make it pretty if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Only you will know what's on the inside. So the more you do this, the easier it's going to be for you to kind of manipulate these corners and kind of make them do what you want them to do. The most used size of piping that I put in pillows has a 1/4 inch diameter. And that is this big spool. But you can buy this stuff by the yard at most sewing supply places like Joann Fabrics or Hancock's or Hobby Lobby. I think might have some in different sewing places around the country. We get most of our home decor, I guess, supplies, like this stuff like here from, I think this is from Rowley, R-O-W-L-E-Y. Also, Western Upholstery here in Denver carries quite a few products that I use in home decor. Alright, so you guys, so I'm on my last corner. We're almost done here. Just a few more things. And then I'll show you how to join your rope cord. Also, the stiffer this fabric is, the easier your life is. If you're using a really flimsy fabric, it can be more difficult to guide and to kind of direct it where you want it to go. Also, if you're making pillows, think about the depth or the pile of the fabric, because thicker or fluffier fabrics can hide things like the exposed tape on a rope cord. You guys see that? Now when I sew it again, I'll get in closer to pull that tape a little bit further in, but that's kind of what fluffy fabrics do. Okay, so look at this. I'm about to close my rope cord off, and there's a few different methods for doing this, but what I'm going to do is lay flat the beginning of my rope cord and kind of just push it out at an angle, and then all I'm going to do is overlap the rest of my rope cord that's coming towards me. So it's creating a really, really shallow V. And I'm going to sew really slow over it so I don't break a needle. And I did not backstitch simply because I'm going to be sewing around this pillow again. Normally, I backstitch all the time. So now you can see the join. It's kind of obvious, but the other options we had for this just wouldn't really make a very good application on it. And I'll show you guys one more trick before we go.
Okay.